Hey everyone, welcome back to Ben Robinson Guitars. Today we're continuing our Design Intent series, and we're going to look at how I make a guitar neck. And this is common. It doesn't matter if it's a bass, it doesn't matter if it's a short scale bass, the long scale bass, a set neck, a bolt-on neck. This is how I make my necks. So two pieces. Got the fingerboard. I start with 6/4, actually 5/4. I start with 5/4 mahogany, and I put this on the CNC machine. I bolt it down to the CNC machine in 6 locations, and I face it off, and then I put the features in for the truss rod. Couple of things to notice. I've got these holes right here, and I've got the corresponding hole down here. Of everything that is on the guitar right now, it's the location of this truss rod and those 2 holes. These truss rod and these holes have to be perfectly down the center line. Now the blank can move or rotate just a little bit, but as long as the center line from this hole is straight down the middle of the truss rod to this hole down here. Now what these holes do is it lets me orient the blank on the machine. So I set it on the machine, and I'm going to put it on hardened 1/2" precision ground dowel pins, and I'll set it on there, and I know I'm centered. I can flip it over and I can set them on those same pins, and I know it's centered from top to bottom. Now the other thing you'll notice that you'll see this slot, this little slot right here. Again, orientation is very important, and the depth there is also important. So it's the first thing I do. I go ahead and I press the truss rod in, and I'm really always looking for a really good tight fit on the truss rod, and it's not moving in there right now. The other thing that I do is I do put a little bit of silicone down here on the bottom on the end. I do have a couple of different length truss rods that I use, but my cut is standard. So to keep this thing from ever possibly moving, I just put a little bit of silicone down there in the very bottom just to close off that hole. I could push wood or something, make a spline and run it in there. This is good enough. It's serving its intent. So once I have this, the truss rods in, the silicone there has dried. Well, now what? Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take the fretboard, and this is a piece of Catalox, and really, Catalox is a great fingerboard material. It is super dense and very stiff. So you get a 1/4 sawn piece of this matched with a piece of rift sawn or 1/4 sawn, even flat sawn. But generally for necks, I'm either using rift or 1/4. But this being 1/4 sawn, when that goes on here, it is just really going to stiffen that neck up. So great fingerboard. One last thing, this truss rod that I put in here, this is actually a dual action truss rod, and I do that because wood moves. And this could come off the machine. I could easily get a little bit of back bow in it. I could even get a little bit of forward bow, just depending on how, as I remove material, how this blank relieves itself and lands in its final position. So what I have found is using these dual action truss rods, I can move the neck whichever way I want. Now I'm sighting down this, and I mean I could put it on a flat table, and there's just nothing in there. If anything, it might have just a little tiny little bit of back bow. It's really hard to see. I could put a straight edge on there, I guess, but it's pretty flat. So now one other thing you see, if you see this little groove line right there, that groove line tells me where the fretboard has to cover. So as long as I take the fretboard and I put it on here, and it's outside this groove, when I carve the neck, everything is going to be, the entire neck is inside that groove, so to speak. And I've marked this if I can see which way it is. Okay, So I look at the blank and I determine which way is the best orientation from a look. Do I glue this side? Do I glue this side? What I've determined is I'm going to glue this side here. Now I've got a drum sander because you know when I buy these, they're pretty rough looking. They'll have bandsaw marks and stuff in them. So the first thing I do is I run it through my drum sander, and that gets this surface very, very, very flat. Again, this is going to be my glued surface, and I think that's 100 grit paper. I want to say on that drum sander, might be 80. But once it comes off and I'm happy with this, I'm going to go back and I'm going to take 120 grit paper and I go with the grain. And I get a really good smooth surface here, but yet it's not super smooth. This catalog's being so dense and so stiff, it's not really going to absorb glue very well. Not nearly what this mahogany, African mahogany, is going to do. So I do the same thing. I hit this just inside that square. I hit that with 120 grit paper, and then we get ready for glue up. So there it is. I got it marked. So I'm going to set that guy on there now. So I provide clearance for the pin, and as long as I can't see any of that groove, I'm going to glue that fretboard on just like that. So hang tight. I'm going to go ahead and glue this on. When the glue dries, I'll bring it back and you'll see what it looks like. All right, everybody, we are back, and I went ahead and glued the fretboard on and count the clamps. You can never have enough clamps on here. Generally, what I start with is I use these parallel clamps on the outsides. I'll just tell you what I typically do. Because you know, I've had instances before, if you do this enough, that the fretboard might actually shift or rotate just a little bit as the glue levels down, and if you don't catch it, you've got a problem. But what I found is I use these parallel clamps, put them on the outsides. I get these as my starting points, and then from there on, generally, I rarely do I ever have any problems. I do use a scale, and I measure from the edge of the neck blank right here to the edge of the fretboard on the front and the back. That also just makes sure that I don't have any kind of rotation that's introduced. You know, when you clamp something, you don't have to get it overly tight. And really, these clamps here, these are just the hand gripper clamps. Actually, I prefer those. They're fast, and it's just your grip strength, unless you're an absolute, you know, He-Man, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you're not going to get these too tight. Use the little spring clamps on the edges. And really, all I'm looking for when I do this is I'm just looking for a little bit of seepage or a squeeze out all the way around the end. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just a little bit does the trick. As far as the glue that I like to use, Titebond Original. To me, it's the best stuff. And just do this. Take yourself some Titebond Original, just smear something on a piece of wax paper or something, and that you can peel that piece of that glue line, so to speak, off. Let it dry for a day, let it dry for 2 days, whatever it is. You know, a nice thin layer of wax paper, peel it off, and it's brittle. And some of it, like the Titebond 2, Titebond 3, they got like plasticizers in it or something. I'm not sure what it is, but they actually will bend and bow, and you know, they're meant for outside use. The Titebond Original is inside. It's the best glue that I have found to use. It works great. All right, so we're gonna leave this overnight, and we'll take the clamps off. We'll throw it in the CNC machine tomorrow, and we'll cut, and then I'll be back to see you guys. Hold tight. Hey everyone, it's the next day. I've got the fretboard glued on the blank, and I've got it loaded in the CNC machine. So let's just take a quick look at some of the fine details here. So you're able to see the blank, and I've got 6 screws that are holding it down to the table. The thing I want you to really take a look at are those holes right there. And I don't know if it'll show up, but there is a hardened pin in that hole right there. And then there's another one right there in the center, and I'm using that on the table to orient everything. that location is the center line of my table. So I went ahead and I put this blank in there, and when I get the program running, the CNC machine is going to carve that out. Then the key is going to be when I flip to do the other side, it'll line up on those pins. So I'm going to get the CNC machine running, and then when I'm ready for the flip, I'll turn the camera back on. Okay, so we've got the bottom part of the neck carved. I'll zoom the camera in here in a second. And I got the bolts out, and I'm going to show you the flip here. So here's the neck. This is a short scale base neck, and I put these pins in here, these brass inserts, so they're ready to go. And again, there's the dowel pins that I'm resting this neck on. So I'm going to set the camera down again here, tilt it down a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I pop that off of there, and these spacers here are to account for the thickness of the fingerboard. So again, it was resting on there like this. I carved this second half, and I'm orienting on these two pins. So I can flip this guy over now and get rid of all the dust on there. And I orient it now on those pins. So again, let's zoom in here, and you can see, you can probably catch that pin in there. You can probably just see it in there. So I'm resting on there, and I'm resting on that pin. And what that does is it really gives me great control over the build of this neck. And a lot of people say, well, why don't you separate the fretboard and use the fretboard as its own piece, make it the way that it is, and then glue it onto the neck. And that is a tried and true, it is a method for building a neck. I went a different direction. And the reason is because, if I tell this machine what to do, and I tell it right, it doesn't have a bad Monday. It always repeats it over and over and over again. So the consistency is truly there. The other reason, and this is the probably the primary reason why I do it, because if you look at this build, how I'm putting guitars together, the most important thing to have is getting the frets in the right spot in relation to the nut, getting the nut in the right spot related to that bridge. So it all ties together. So if I'm going to build the neck and I put the fretboard on the neck and I do this as one piece, and you already saw those bushings, those screw bushings that I have in the back, they're highly important where they sit. So when you mount it to the neck, all of these things have to work together. And really, I'm taking that human error out of it. I'm going to cut the slots, the fret slots, everything is going to be done on this machine, and it's all going to be related. Wood is hard to measure because you can compress it and everything, but really, the accuracy of this machine is going to translate into the accuracy of this neck as a single piece. And it's off a fraction of a length of a hair. So players come and they play my guitars, and the intonation is exactly right. There's not one fret that's just slightly out of place because you wiggle it on the jig a little bit, or when you put the fretboard down on the neck, and the pin, it just was pushed over just a little bit, and when that pin was alignment pin was getting put in, this takes all that out of there. It's as tight as the machine is, and the chance for error now becomes right here where this is. And again, you saw the process, you saw the methodology. It's machine done, and it's following that way through this neck build. So I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, this neck can get put on a guitar and it's gonna be as close as it can get it. And it shows up in sustain, it shows up in tone, it shows up in intonation, it just shows up in a lot of ways. And people say, well, man, how do you get that guitar to sound that good? And it's not one thing, it's this whole myriad of things that I call design intent. So I'm gonna run this front piece. When it's done, I'll bring the camera back on and you'll get to see what it looks like. Catch you in a second. Okay, everybody, we got the top side machine. I'll bring the camera in and you can take a look at it here. I did remove the bolts, the hold down bolts, but I haven't taken the neck out yet. And so you can kind of see, you know, what this is starting to look like. And I'll go ahead and move the camera back out and I'll pull it out and just, we'll see what we see here. All right, so, you know, I mean, that's what you get when this comes out. And so you can see these tabs right here. That's what's holding it into the blank. And you can really see it down here at the ends and see how I got those 3 tabs there. I'll cut those out and do some sanding on there. But yeah, I mean, it looks good. So I mentioned on the first part of the video the little slot, the locator slot, and you can see, let me flip it this way, you can see it really good right there. Now I do that because that's locating the truss rod. So I can take the 1/4 inch drill bit and I know exactly where to start and angle it into the neck, not necessarily flat, angle it into the neck a little bit because that head of the truss rod's just a little low. And that's the way that way I know I get that drill in the right spot. So that's how I do it. You know, I mean, it comes out pretty clean. I tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. I'll shut the camera off for a second and then get this cut out, and I'll kind of show you some details there. Hold on just one second. All right, everybody. I went ahead and I got it cut out, and you kind of get a feel for the look of it. And again, you can see that see those tabs. I don't know if you can see them a little better right here. You can see those tabs that are holding it in. See the tabs over here on this side there that we're holding it in. Really, you know, this is coming off the machine, so it's really pretty good. I mean, the machine does a great job capturing all these radiuses and so on. You know, this tearing and this burring right here is totally normal. Anybody says, whoa, you know, you don't have to sand after a CNC machine is just grossly mistaken. Probably another area to really take a good look at. This is where I probably end up doing the most work. Right there is where the fretboard joins. And then your radius is really starting about right there on the neck. And what that allows me to do, I purposely left thickness right here. And what that allows me to do is use the razor file, and I can start laying these edges over. So if I lay this edge over, and when I get the frets on, I can start laying this edge here over. And I call it my C with a D flare profile, because you do have a good, nice little flat edge right here. And I like that because I can really round that over a little bit here, and I can round this over on this side. Just gives a great feel to this neck. So tell you what we're gonna do. That's how I make a neck. And again, the primary reason with me using that blank, locating off these pins over here, I have to have this location here, has to be just spot on with these threaded inserts here, and then all of these frets right here have to be spot on with the nut. And doing it this way, I end up with exactly that. It's as tight as what this machine is, which literally it's going to be as accurate within a fraction of a hair, thickness of a hair. And that's really what gives me my sustain. It gives me tone, great intonation, and it's what makes a good guitar. It's the differences between a good guitar and a great guitar. So hey, if you guys like this content, like, subscribe, leave me comments, ask questions. Hey, what do you do about this? And you know, I'll be sure feel free to answer, or I will answer those. So take care, everybody. We'll catch you guys again soon.